Tatsuya was born into the Yotsuba family, one of the strongest mage clans in Japan. His family only cared about creating strong mages, and for that, while his mother, the clan leader, was still pregnant, she prayed with all her desire for Tatsuya to become a superhuman-like mage. His birth was quickly celebrated, however, they found out that he couldn't use magic and turned him into an outcast, being bullied and ignored by everyone. No matter how much he cried or screamed, nobody would pay attention to him, neither his own mother, the person who desired him the most. To hide that he was disowned and keep a good public face, his mother assigned him as his sister's bodyguard. Since then, Tatsuya never cried again. Not because he didn't wish to, but because all the pain and suffering made him lose all his emotions. The three arrive at their villa, where they are greeted by Hanami, one of the family servants. The three head inside while the hard labor of carrying the luggage is left for Tatsuya. Miyuki decides to go for a walk and asks her mother to get permission. Her mother tells her to take Tatsuya with her, something Miyuki is less than pleased about, but agrees to it nonetheless. Miyuki goes for her walk while Tatsuya keeps a respectable distance behind. Miyuki vents internally about Tatsuya being her guardian when he is weaker than her, making it pointless. As she internally laments about his situation, Miyuki is suddenly stopped by Tatsuya, but the man she nearly walked into still intentionally bumps into her. The three off-duty soldiers take a threatening stance to intimidate the siblings, but Tatsuya stands in front of Miyuki. He calmly tells the soldiers to leave, with his voice and eyes insinuating that they aren't a threat. Tatsuya is the one who's dangerous. This antagonizes the three, and things quickly escalate with the soldier throwing a punch infused with magic which Tatsuya blocks. Miyuki cannot believe her eyes, thinking he used magic to block it, but she knows he cannot use magic. Tatsuya gives another warning, but the soldier attacks anyway. Tatsuya easily counters him with a punch that knocks him down. Tatsuya then leads Miyuki away while the man is on the floor. As the pair walk hand in hand, Miyuki is left stunned by Tatsuya's display of unexpected combat skill. The pair return to the villa. Hanami immediately notices Miyuki is rattled. Upon hearing the details, Hanami compliments Tatsuya, but he dismisses it as his duty, leaving Miyuki confused, as she doesn't know what he means by that. Mia compliments him on knowing his place. Mia is unwell, so Miyuki is heading to a party to greet one of the branch leaders of the family in her stead. Miyuki is averse to going, and Hanami gives her pointers on hiding her feelings for the sake of her future public image. As the siblings head out to the party, Hanami laments Tatsuya's fate when there is no reason for him to be a bodyguard when he isn't an artificially enhanced mage like she herself is. Miyuki arrives at the party with Tatsuya. She formally greets Mitsugu, the branch leader, who then leads her to see her cousins, whilst Tatsuya, as her escort, takes his position by the wall. But they quickly rush to Tatsuya after noticing him. As he talks to the kids, Miyuki notices a slim smile on Tatsuya's face. She starts to feel jealous, as she has never seen him smile at him, despite not even caring about him. Mitsugu quickly comes to the rescue of Tatsuya from the excited kids, but in reality, he's just trying to make the kids avoid him. Miyuki reflects on the internal situation of the family and how they are forcing everyone to keep their distance from Tatsuya. To them, Tatsuya is a mere bodyguard, an expendable instrument who must sacrifice himself to protect his sister. Because of the family, she never loved him as a brother, and because of his apathetic personality, she thinks he also never loved her, as he's forced to stay by her side instead of being free. Tatsuya diffuses the situation by asking for permission to patrol the grounds. Seeing Tatsuya's resolve to play his role as a bodyguard, Miyuki resolves to do her duty to represent her mother. On the next day, the family members decide to spend some leisure time aboard their yacht, because they swim in cash, not in the ocean. They're all taking photos, and Hanami tells the siblings to take a picture. But of course, Tatsuya cannot do it without asking permission from his mother. She silently agrees to it, and Miyuki surprisingly blushes while smiling. Yet, as they take the shot, the yacht takes evasive action as it is attacked by a submarine. Miyuki and Hanami pull out their CAD, the device that makes them cast magic, to defend the yacht. But when she looks at Tatsuya, she notices his hands are empty. She thinks to herself how useless he is. He is still considered a mage, but he doesn't even have a device. Suddenly, they see two torpedo shadows in the water and are shocked, as none of their magic spells can defend them from that attack. Out of nowhere, Tatsuya simply points his hand at the torpedoes and uses a spell to dismantle them. Miyuki cannot believe her eyes. She doesn't understand what happened. She is confused by that kind of magic. Tatsuya doesn't have a CAD. He shouldn't be able to use magic. Furthermore, he just used an advanced type of magic in a second. From that moment on, she started to feel her heartbeat pulsing in her chest. She thinks about who really her older brother is and how she can get closer to him. That evening, the villa is visited by Kazama, the captain from the nearby military base, who is taking a statement about the incident. The siblings escort him out as he leaves, and there they see the soldier whom Tatsuya knocked down a few days ago. Realizing Tatsuya is the boy from the incident, Kazama makes the soldier apologize. But Tatsuya could only speak and accept the apology after Miyuki nodded her head in approval. With his interest piqued, Kazama invites Tatsuya to visit his unit base. On the next day, Tatsuya's mother plans to attend an event for women only and tells Tatsuya to visit the base, as it may be a good opportunity to learn something. Miyuki asks if she can go as well, saying she needs to understand her bodyguard's skill level. Their mother agrees but tells them they must behave like siblings in public, mentioning that Tatsuya should use Miyuki's name instead of referring to her as Miss. At the base, they are greeted by Sanada, who leads them to where the troops are training to use basic magic without a device under Kazama's watchful eye. The training moves to fight-sparing matches, and Kazama invites Tatsuya to join. Tatsuya agrees, and his first opponent is a national boxing champion. The match begins with the boxer launching a flurry of punches, but Tatsuya calmly dodges and strikes once, making his opponent fall. Next is a karate black belt, and Kazama tells him to go all out against a 13-year-old. As the soldier attacks, Sanada comments on how Tatsuya is treating the fight as if it was real combat, keeping a distance in case the soldier has concealed weapons. The match ends with Tatsuya countering an attack and flipping the soldier to the floor. After watching a kid beating up some grown-up soldiers, Kazama feels like their honor is at stake and requests a final match. Joseph, the guy Tatsuya beat on the first day, volunteers, stating he would like a chance to prove himself. Kazama attests to Joseph's skill level, and so Tatsuya agrees, though Miyuki is anxious about it. The match begins, but this time, the soldier needs to fight using magic. Miyuki objects, but Tatsuya scolds her, pointing out that using magic is a must for a magician. Tatsuya uses his agility to get some distance and uses his own magic to stun Joseph and take him down, leaving everyone shocked. Literally the same feeling when you get wrecked by a 13-year-old Fortnite player. But what makes them even more impressed is that Tatsuya used a magic called Gram Demolition, an S-ranked spell that destroys the enemy magic spells. Kazama then invites the siblings to have tea to discuss the technique Tatsuya just used, whilst Sanada invites him to look at the CADs he's working on. The CADs catch Tatsuya's interest. A few days later, Miyuki notices Tatsuya has been working all day and night on his CADs in his room, without understanding why he's doing it. Suddenly, an alarm goes off as air raid sirens sound across the region. An announcement is then given. A patrol boat was attacked off the coast and the island has come under fire from a missile attack. The announcer then advises people to evacuate. Tatsuya then arrives to inform them that Kazama has offered them shelter at the base. At that moment, the phone rings. Hanami informs Mia that it is her sister calling. They discuss the situation, with her sister advising them to shelter at the base and to remove Tatsuya's limiter. Mia agrees and tells Tatsuya to ask Kazama for transportation. Arriving at the base, Joseph guides them to a break room inside to wait with another family until the shelter is ready. Mia and Hanami think that something seems off, but the four wait until they hear gunshots. Tatsuya tries to use his magic to scout the area, but the room is shielded, so he cannot see what is happening outside the room. Mia orders Tatsuya to check on what is going on outside, but he voices his fear that something might happen while he's out and that Miyuki, his mother, goes rampage, angered that he called his sister by her name as if he was an equal to her. She angrily tells him to not forget he's a mere bodyguard, forcing him to apologize. To make sure he follows her orders, his mother uses magic to force him to comply. Outside, Tatsuya sees a gunfight between the base's personnel and enemy troops supported by some traitors. Inside, a soldier named Kinju arrives at the room with 3 colleagues and promises the civilians he will guide them out of the shelter. Hanami tells him that one of them has stepped out to check the situation, and Tatsuya's mother adds that the soldiers can take the other family first. Hanami thinks that Tatsuya's mother is showing concern for her son for the first time in her life, but the mother simply tells that she cannot trust those guys. Before anything else can happen, Joseph arrives and calls out to Kinju, who opens fire without warning. Hamani puts up a barrier to defend Mia and Miyuki, but one of the traitors uses a magic spell that suppresses others' magic, leaving all 3 unable to act. Joseph and Kinju argue about the betrayal, and when Joseph's words hit a nerve, the suppression spell weakens enough for Miyuki to act, killing the one who is suppressing everyone's magic. However, this infuriates Kinju, who guns the three down. In moments, Tetsuya arrives by making a hole in the walls and uses the cat he was working on to disintegrate all Traitor 4 soldiers. Seeing Miyuki lifeless in a pool of blood, Tetsuya rushes over and gets desperate. He calls for her name while putting his hand on her chest, but she doesn't reply. She's dead. He desperately shouts he won't let her die, and casts a unique magic spell. In her unconscious mind, Miyuki is sitting in the middle of a cold ruined city and hears Tetsuya calling out for her name. She thinks that he's sad for seeing her die, and regrets the way she's been awfully treating him since he was born. She wishes she could have a chance to apologize, but now is too late and she collapses. Suddenly, a magic wave appears upon her and starts healing her, while rebuilding her body before she was shot. She opens her eyes and realizes it's Tetsuya's magic, thinking how powerful and wonderful her brother is. When she's completely revived, Tetsuya immediately hugs her in relief. She is safe. She hugs him back, and when he gets up to save the rest, she doesn't want him to get away from her. But when she looks at her mother, she sees all the holes in her body. She calls him brother for the first sincere time, and he completely heals and revives her and Hanami. While the others wake up, their mother is still unconscious, forcing the base doctor to check her condition. Kazama apologizes to Tetsuya for the traitor's actions, but Tetsuya asks for an explanation. Kazama tells the other family was the target, and that Tetsuya's family was taken as collateral. Kazama then explains that the enemy controls the waters near the island and about the land troops on the village shoreline. Understanding the situation, Tetsuya then asks them to shelter his family in their most secure location and asks for armor and equipment so he can go for the enemy. Kazama asks why and Tetsuya explains it is revenge for killing his sister. Kazama states he will not allow the killing of non-combatants and anyone who surrenders. But Tetsuya, with a cold look in his eyes, assures he won't even allow the enemy enough time to surrender. Kazama agrees to have Tetsuya deploy with them. Tetsuya leaves, but Miyuki grabs into him asking him not to go. Tetsuya states he must because they hurt the only thing important to him. Miyuki notices the strange phrasing, and Tetsuya tells her that she's old enough and that their mother should explain it to her. He then assures Miyuki he will return because due to his power, there isn't anyone that can defeat him. The family watches Tetsuya and the military unit fight against the invaders. Hanami states that the fight is a living nightmare. Tetsuya is disintegrating the enemy soldiers with his magic. But to make it even worse, when his companions are shot down, he simply revives them. Miyuki then asks her mother for an explanation for what her brother said. Her mother scolds her for calling him her brother but then explains Tetsuya was born as a defective magician. For the Tetsuya clan, true magic is all about modifying information and getting a result, in this case, a specific spell. But Tetsuya can only destroy and restore information at a monstrous level, which has several locks to prevent him from getting revenge and destroying the family. But his brain still cannot change magic information. Their mother made several experiments on him to change his brain with magic and force it to change magic information, making him lose all his emotions, except for one, his brotherly love toward Miyuki. But since all experimentations failed, their mother decided to use his defective power and strong bond toward Miyuki and forced him to become her bodyguard. Hearing this upsets Miyuki, making her cry. She then turns back to the screen and ponders how she can ever repay Tetsuya for everything he has done for her. As the battle comes to a close, 6 ships detach from the enemy fleet and flee away. The soldiers want to intercept their escape, but the base commander tells the soldiers to back away. They don't really understand what's happening because only Sanada, Kazama, and Tetsuya are staying behind. He is holding up a huge sniper CAD that he developed. Noticing the CAD, Hanami asks for permission to deploy and support Tetsuya. The mother agrees, seeming to know what he is planning. Hanami arrives and activates her shields, focusing on defense from the incoming bombardment so that Tetsuya can focus on attacking. This buys Tetsuya the time he needs, allowing him to activate his magic spell, Material Burst, obliterating the fleet and creating a huge tsunami while they retreat. Once they reach safety, Tetsuya watches as Hanami dies because she exhausted all her magic power to shield him. However, she reveals to be content to have chosen the time she fulfilled her final duty, which allowed her to die as a person and not as a man-made tool, something that Tetsuya should learn from. And with those last words, she closed her eyes. 3 years have elapsed since the infamous Akawana incident that earned Tetsuya the daunting title of God of Destruction. Following this, Tetsuya decided to further his education at Magic First High School, an affiliated institution of the National Magic University. He was admitted as a second course student. His theoretical knowledge was commendable, but his practical skills left much to be desired. Miyuki, his sister, was outraged by the ranking and initially refused to deliver her speech at the entrance ceremony. However, Tatsuya was able to convince her to proceed. While at the school, Tatsuya encountered the student council president, Mayumi. The institution had a unique way of classifying students. First course students were known as blooms, while second course students were disparagingly referred to as weeds due to their lower entrance exam scores. During the ceremony, Tatsuya befriended Mizuki and Erika, fellow weeds. Mizuki postulated that Tatsuya and Miyuki might be twins due to their similar magical auras. Noticing her keen observation, Tatsuya decided to be cautious around Mizuki to prevent revealing his true powers. The next day, Tatsuya was engaged in his ninjutsu training. Simultaneously, his master playfully teased Miyuki. Tatsuya took on his master in a spar but ended up losing, as his master needed to utilize magic to level the playing field. Later at school, Tatsuya crossed paths with Leo, who was curious about Tatsuya's magical specialization. Tatsuya revealed his weakness in practical skills and expressed his aspiration to become an engineer. At lunch, Miyuki expressed a desire to dine with her brother. However, some Bloom students quickly pointed out the social boundary. Blooms were not expected to associate with weeds. Following their classes, a contentious dialogue sprouted between the Blooms and the weeds, escalating into a skirmish. The arrival of Mayumi prevented things from getting out of hand. The entire group was on the verge of facing disciplinary action from the student council, but Tatsuya managed to defuse the situation. When interrogated about a girl casting a spell, Tatsuya identified it as light magic. He then surprised everyone by revealing his ability to decipher magical activation sequences as they were being executed. This was considered an impossible feat, as casting a spell involved the quick succession of 30,000 characters within a fraction of a second. Miyuki expresses her regret for the incident, and Mayumi, being understanding, forgives them but also admonishes them not to repeat the offense. Honoka and Shizuku, two first course students, extend their gratitude to Tatsuya for coming to their aid. As Tatsuya and Miyuki plan to head home, Honoka requests if they could accompany them. During their journey, they discover that Tatsuya possesses the unique ability to modify C/D, which leaves them all in awe. The following day, Mayumi invites Tatsuya and his sister to have lunch with the student council. They request Miyuki to become the council's secretary, to which she agrees, but on one condition, that they also include her brother, Tatsuya. Mary, a council member, explains that traditionally, only first course students can be part of the student council, but she suggests an alternative, to have Tatsuya join the disciplinary committee instead. Tatsuya shares this news with his friends, and Erika warns him about the potential dangers of becoming a committee member, especially since he is considered a weed. Later, Tatsuya encounters Hattori, another student who expresses his displeasure to Mary about the idea of a weed being a part of the committee. This comment irks Mary, who then elaborates on Tatsuya's unique ability to read activation sequences. Unbelievably, Hattori dismisses this as impossible. Mary continues to argue, believing that Tatsuya's membership could help reduce the discrimination that second course students face. However, Hattori remains stubborn, refusing to accept Tatsuya as a committee member. Miyuki attempts to defend her brother, but her efforts are met with insults from Hattori, who calls her short-sighted. Provoked by the insult to his sister, Tatsuya challenges Hattori to a duel. Hattori, underestimating Tatsuya, assumes it will be a cakewalk to defeat him. However, to his shock, Tatsuya emerges victorious in the duel within a blink of an eye. When questioned about his surprising victory, Tatsuya confesses to Mary that he used his expertise in ninjutsu to overcome Hattori. He utilized his physical strength and agility to swiftly position himself behind Hattori, where he cast his spell. Tatsuya shares that he manipulated different calculations for each magic wave, causing them to converge at one spot, leaving Hattori feeling disoriented and ultimately fainting. During this revelation, Azusa discovers that Tatsuya's cast-assisted device was made by the legendary magic designer, Taurus Silver, who revolutionized the world of magic with the creation of the loop cast system, accelerating the evolution of magic by a decade. Once Hattori regains consciousness, he recognizes that the school's appraisal of magic doesn't truly reflect Tatsuya's skill set, leading him to apologize to Miyuki. Mary then escorts Tatsuya to their headquarters, where he points out the potential pitfalls in her plan to eradicate discrimination among the students. In response, Mary informs Tatsuya that Shun Morisaki, the student who had previously assaulted him, is set to join them on the council. Tatsuya meets the rest of the committee members, who initially harbor doubts about him but are eventually taken aback when they learn about his effortless victory over Hattori. Later that night, Miyuki requests Tatsuya to fine-tune her C/D to enhance the speed of her spell casting. Tatsuya, along with Shun, the bothersome guy from the first day, are assigned to patrol duty, with authorization to use their CS if the situation demands. Despite being older models, Tatsuya decides to use 2 committee CS for the task. While on duty, Tatsuya comes across a conflict between the Kendo and Kenjutsu clubs, squabbling over the usage of demonstration space. In a dangerous turn of events, Kirihara, the national champion of Kenjutsu, employs lethal magic against Sayaka, a member of the opposing club. Tatsuya intervenes without hesitation, halting the confrontation and apprehending Kirihara. In retaliation, the entire Kenjutsu club attempts to assault Tatsuya for detaining Kirihara, but Tatsuya skillfully dodges their attacks, neutralizing the situation effortlessly. Tatsuya fills in Mary and Jumanji, the individual overseeing all the school clubs, about the encounter he had with Kirihara. They praise him for his exceptional handling of the situation. During a dinner with his sister and friends, Tatsuya discloses that he unintentionally developed a novel technique termed specific magic jamming. He used this innovative method to neutralize Kirihara's magic by simultaneously operating 2 CS and inputting differing variables into each to cancel out the magic. However, Tatsuya requests that they keep this revelation confidential, as this inexpensive solution could potentially destabilize the entire framework of magic, as it's a cost-effective alternative to a typically expensive tool. The following day, Tatsuya receives an urgent call about an outbreak of a brawl and rushes to intervene. But he finds himself ambushed by an unidentified attacker. He manages to fend off the attack, and the assailant flees the scene. Mibu expresses a desire to converse with Tatsuya, sparking suspicion in Miyuki that Mibu might be interested in dating him. Mibu extends an invitation to Tatsuya to join the Kendo club, but Tatsuya insists on knowing her motives behind the invitation. Mibu reveals her aim to form an organization comprising individuals who are unable to use magic, with the intent to combat discrimination. Tatsuya remains skeptical and questions her about her plans post-achieving this goal. Tatsuya shares Mibu's intentions with the disciplinary committee, and they suspect that she might be under some form of manipulation. Tatsuya conjectures if Blanche, a known anti-magic group, could be behind this, and informs the committee that he intends to wait for Mibu's response before making a decision. Mibu converses with Kino, the captain of the Kendo club, who persuades her to recruit Tatsuya, emphasizing the importance of his powers. Later that night, Tatsuya discusses Blanche with Miyuki, describing them as a terrorist group. He hypothesizes that he could have been a part of such a group had he not possessed unique abilities. He further elaborates that Blanche's objective is to weaken the country's power, which would inevitably lead to a clash against the 10 master clans, particularly their own clan, the Yatsubas. Tatsuya dedicates himself to honing his practical magic skills. Mizuki, intrigued by his remarkable processing speed despite his low practical skills, wonders how he manages to do it. Tatsuya shares that he is focusing his studies on the production of energy through magic, which sparks interest in Mizuki and inspires her to set her own goals. When Tatsuya meets with Mibu to hear her decision, he finds her response unsatisfactory and hence turns down her invitation. As a result, a group of second course students called the Sympathizer Alliance, led by Mibu, take over the broadcast room as a protest against the ongoing discrimination. Mary wants to handle the situation by force, while Jumanji favors a more peaceful solution. Tatsuya communicates with Mibu and assures her that they are open to discussions and guarantees her safety. Once the group emerges from the broadcast room, the committee detains them. However, Mayumi intervenes and releases them, expressing a desire to negotiate with Mibu. Unfortunately, the negotiations reach a standstill as they are unable to identify the necessary changes to eradicate discrimination. Mayumi then proposes a public debate, believing that the broader student body should be involved in the decision-making. Meanwhile, Tatsuya comes across Mizuki having a conversation with Kino, who seems overly assertive towards her. Their teacher provides them with a brief history of Kino, revealing that Kino's brother heads the Japanese branch of Blanche. The following day, the anticipated debate takes place, and Mayumi successfully wins over the students, effectively putting an end to the protests. However, amidst the celebrations, the school is suddenly targeted by a terrorist attack. The school successfully thwarts the terrorist attack but soon realizes that it was merely a distraction. The true intention of the attackers was to steal confidential information from the Magic University that was stored at the school's library. Tatsuya manages to counter the intruders in the library, apprehending Mibu, who had been defeated by Erika. Upon capturing Kino, they employ a truth serum on him to uncover the location of Blanche's base. Subsequently, they visit Mibu in the hospital where she confesses that she felt discriminated against due to Mary. She recollects an incident where she had requested Mary to train with her, but Mary declined since Mibu's abilities far surpassed her own. However, Mibu misinterpreted Mary's words, wrongly assuming that Mary had insinuated Mibu wasn't on par with her. Tatsuya comforts her and makes up his mind to eradicate the remaining members of Blanche single-handedly. Mibu thinks he's doing it for her, but he reveals that he won't allow dangerous people around his sister. His friends and sister insist on assisting him. After uncovering the location of Blanche's hideout, they prepare to strike against them. Kirihara, who has feelings for Mibu, decides to join the operation as well. Upon reaching the hideout, they strategize their plan of action. Tatsuya and Miyuki encounter several members of Blanche, including Kino's brother, Hajime, who extends an invitation for them to join his cause. Hajime attempts to hypnotize Tatsuya using magic, but Tatsuya counters it, realizing that the same method was used on Mibu. As Hajime flees, Tatsuya chases him, leaving Miyuki behind to handle the remaining Blanche members. She emerges victorious, freezing all her opponents nearly to the point of death. Even when a jamming spell is used, Tatsuya remains unaffected, efficiently dealing with the Blanche members. As Hajime tries to escape, Kirihara steps in and severs his arm, effectively ending his run. Later, when Tatsuya visits Mibu in the hospital, he informs her that neither she nor Kino will face prosecution, as it was determined they were under the influence of mind control. Mibu's father expresses his gratitude towards Tatsuya for rescuing his daughter, and acknowledges that he's aware of Tatsuya's covert military ties but vows to keep it a secret. While heading home, Miyuki mentions that Tatsuya doesn't need to attend high school just for her sake. However, he reassures her, affirming his contentment with his current life. Returning to their training regime with their sensei in preparation for the impending 9-school competition held at Fuji, Tatsuya and Miyuki are met by Haruka, the school's counselor, who discloses her identity as a police investigator. Tatsuya pledges his discretion, on the condition that she informs him of any potential terrorist threats looming on the horizon. During a lunchtime conversation, Tatsuya finds himself invited to join the technical staff supporting the school's team in the competition. Initially, he hesitates to accept due to his weed status, but he is persuaded when Miyuki requests him to maintain her competitive CAD. The discussion shifts to a failed research paper on flight magic, and Mayumi seeks Tatsuya's viewpoint on the matter. He astonishes everyone when he asserts that the failure in crafting the flying magic stemmed from a deficient comprehension of the spells they were utilizing. Subsequently, Tatsuya is officially assigned to the competition's technical staff. Some blooms grumble about this decision, leading to the stipulation that Tatsuya must undergo a test. After exhibiting his adept skills by manually duplicating Kirihara's unique CAD specifications onto a competitive one, he's accepted onto the team. Later that night, Tatsuya receives a call from Major Kazama of the military, who advises him to stay alert during the competition due to the presence of the No-Head Dragon, a notorious international crime syndicate. In an extraordinary feat, Tatsuya successfully engineers a new CAD capable of flight magic, a task previously deemed impossible. He requests Miyuki to test the groundbreaking device and suggests they head to the company of their family for broader testing. On their day off, Tatsuya and Miyuki decide to visit the director of their family-owned company. Tatsuya presents the prototype of the flying CAD. Tatsuya and the director are the actual individuals behind the legendary Taurus Silver. Taurus, the director, specializes in hardware, whereas Tatsuya, known as Silver, is a software engineering wizard. To the outside world, Taurus Silver is an unknown person, but in truth, it's the synergy of their combined efforts. They test the flying CAD successfully but find that it significantly drains the user's energy. Consequently, they discuss potential enhancements to make the magic more accessible and user-friendly for the general public. As they exit the company, they unexpectedly bump into their father and their uncle, Aoki. Aoki mentions Miyuki will ascend to the position of the clan's next head. In contrast, Tatsuya, despite being the eldest, is relegated to the status of a mere bodyguard within the family. When Aoki insults Tatsuya, he retorts by stating that belittling him equates to insulting his aunt and his mother. His father tells Tatsuya not to harbor hate against his mother. However, Tatsuya admits that he can't harbor such feelings as he is devoid of emotions. Back at school, the representatives for the upcoming competition are introduced before their departure. They then board a bus headed for Fuji. Unexpectedly, a car crashes into a concrete rail and slides into the path of their bus. During the crisis, Miyuki and Jumonji employ their skills to protect the students on the bus. Miyuki uses her magic to extinguish the fire, while Jumonji erects a magical wall to halt the sliding car. Nonetheless, Miyuki alone realizes that her brother Tatsuya also played a significant role in the rescue, having discreetly removed the protective spells on the car. Upon reaching Fuji, Hattori begins doubting his abilities, especially since Miyuki proved more effective than him during the car incident. However, Kirihara offers him reassurance, revealing his belief that Tatsuya has likely faced death in the past and that the siblings are far from ordinary. In a conversation with Miyuki, Tatsuya expresses his suspicion that the car accident was actually a deliberate attack perpetrated by the driver. Following the setup for the competition, the students are invited to the 9-school competition dinner party. In attendance at the event is the director of the Magic Association, Kyuru, who decides to test the students' abilities by initiating a weak, yet widespread magic. He is somewhat disappointed when only 5 students, including Tatsuya, manage to detect it. Kyuru then delivers a speech addressing the future of these magicians. Meanwhile, Mikihiko, who is at the event as a spectator, notices the presence of intruders and attempts to confront them. Despite his brave effort to tackle the 3 intruders, he ends up in danger and is saved from a gunshot by Tatsuya. Mikihiko is taken aback by the precision of Tatsuya's interventions during the intrusion. He feels downcast since he was almost injured and had to be rescued by Tatsuya. However, Tatsuya encourages him, reminding Mikihiko of his potential and capabilities. Tatsuya discloses that he is aware of Mikihiko's concerns regarding his spell casting speed, explaining that the slow speed is a consequence of Mikihiko's attempts to conceal his spells. Despite Mikihiko's protests, Tatsuya advises him to alert security so the intruders can be apprehended. The competition kicks off the following day, with the rules being clearly laid out. It is set to span 10 days and is split into 2 sections, one for freshmen and the other for more experienced competitors. The first high school is striving to secure its 3rd consecutive victory, with Mary securing an easy win in the first round. Tatsuya gets summoned to a meeting with military captains and the major, where he is warned to stay alert due to the possibility of further attacks from the No-Head Dragon organization. Mayumi triumphs in the speed shooting contest, earning a perfect score. This achievement leads their school to top the leaderboard after the first day of competition. However, some competitors from their school are not performing up to par. The school requests Tatsuya to handle the technical support for some competitors during his off day, a task he accepts at Miyuki's request. Later, he offers to accompany Miyuki to her room, but she insists he doesn't need to, aware that he's been developing a new weaponized integrated CAD. Tatsuya, however, downplays this, calling it a mere toy for testing a new theory. The next day, Tatsuya assists Mayumi in her preparations for her match, intending to check on the other contestants afterward. However, one of his senior students advises him to focus solely on Mayumi, offering to look after the other contestants for him. After Mayumi secures an effortless win, Tatsuya observes the other female competitors' matches. By the end of the second day, their school remains the frontrunner, largely thanks to the female participants' string of victories. The male contestants, on the other hand, are underperforming significantly. For the school to clinch the overall win, they must secure victories in at least 4 of the remaining 6 official matches. Upon returning to his room, Tatsuya finds that the new CAD he'd been working on had been completed and delivered. When his friends visit him in his room, he sees this as an excellent opportunity for Leo to test the new CAD. The newly developed CAD takes the form of a sword, which possesses a unique feature: it can separate and then reconnect. When Leo tests it on some training dummies, the experiment turns out to be successful. The following day, Mary is scheduled to participate in the semi-finals of the Battle Board event. She commences the competition on a high note, but things quickly take a wrong turn. Rather than slowing down during a turn, her adversary speeds up. Just as the 2 participants are about to crash into each other, Mary inexplicably loses her balance. As a result of the mishap, she gets injured and won't recover until the competition concludes. Both Mayumi and Tatsuya suspect someone intervened in the incident and start probing into it. Joined by Mizuki and Miki, Tatsuya hypothesizes that the perpetrator might have either concealed themselves underwater to disrupt Mary's balance or employed spirit magic. However, given the stringent security measures in place, they rule out the first theory. Miki confirms that it's feasible to cast spirit magic several hours or even days in advance if the geography of the area is well known. but the strength of the spell would be significantly compromised. One last possibility they consider is that the CAD of the other participant in the incident was tampered with. Mary's injury and subsequent withdrawal from the competition put the school in a critical position. To secure a win in the competition, they now have to triumph in the Mirage Bat and Monolith Code events. But they are faced with a dilemma as they had not arranged a backup for Mary, who was slated to participate in the seniors Mirage Bat event. Left with no other alternatives, they decide to let Miyuki fill in for Mary in the competition, with Tatsuya acting as her engineer. Meanwhile, Tatsuya devotes his energy to strategizing and providing technical support for his other competitors. His commitment is so intense that he even starts inventing new magic spells to guarantee their victory. First High School maintains its leading position in the competition, largely due to Tatsuya's technical expertise and strategic planning. However, Tatsuya chooses not to take credit for the magic spell he developed, in a bid to avoid attracting his family's attention. Miyuki questions Tatsuya about his refusal to accept recognition for the new magic he crafted. In response, Tatsuya discloses that he's honoring the wishes of his aunt, as he doesn't want the Magic University to discover his true identity as Silver. He further confides in Miyuki that he is not in a position to overthrow his aunt at the moment. While he is confident of defeating her in a direct confrontation, he knows that the rest of the family would not accept him as their leader. To this, Miyuki reaffirms her unwavering support for him, promising to always stand by his side. On her recovery from the hospital, Mary decides to root for Miyuki and Tatsuya. Miyuki sails through a round in the pillar break competition with ease, employing the Advanced Inferno spell. All the participants supported by Tatsuya end up winning their respective events, earning him widespread praise for his outstanding engineering skills. However, these accolades stir resentment in Morisaki. He pledges to demonstrate that blooms are superior to weeds. While heading to Miyuki's event with her, Tatsuya crosses paths with Masaki and George from 3rd High School. George acknowledges Tatsuya as the most gifted engineer ever to participate in this competition. Meanwhile, Masaki expresses his wish to compete against Tatsuya, but since Tatsuya is only playing the role of an engineer, Masaki intends to outperform the contestants under Tatsuya's guidance. Mayumi informs the 3 girls whom Tatsuya is mentoring that they don't need to battle each other in the pillar break event. They can all share the podium. However, Shizuku is eager to challenge Miyuki, an offer that Miyuki accepts. Unfortunately, Shizuku is completely outclassed in the face-off and ends up in tears, admitting that her powers are dwarfed by Miyuki's. Returning to his room, Tatsuya reflects on the impressive achievements of Masaki and George, one a seasoned battlefield veteran, the other a prodigy who proved the existence of cardinal codes, a concept that was previously theoretical. He surmises that Morisaki will likely lose against such formidable opponents, considering Masaki's power surpasses any first-year students at his school. The next day, Tatsuya learns that Morisaki and his team were ambushed with a prohibited spell, causing injuries and rendering them unable to compete. First High may have to forfeit the match, but Mayumi shares that Jumanji is negotiating with the competition's organizers. She suspects someone is trying to undermine their school. Tatsuya discloses his encounter with the members of the No-Head Dragon that he overpowered a few days earlier. While First High triumphs in another freshman Mirage Bat event, they can't secure an overall victory unless they participate in the Monolith Code event. During this event, Azusa overhears conversations suggesting that Tatsuya's mentees are using remarkably precise and efficient magic activation spells, something only Taurus Silver could possibly achieve. Connecting the dots with the new magic spells and all his mentees, she comes to realize Tatsuya's true identity. After the event, a meeting is called at First High School. There, Mayumi proposes that Tatsuya himself participate in the event. Despite initially refusing, Tatsuya is persuaded by Jumanji to agree. He is asked to select his 2 teammates, and he picks Miki and Leo as he is familiar with their capabilities and has observed their training firsthand. Leo and Miki willingly agree to participate in the event, and Tatsuya takes it upon himself to explain the rules to them. He devises a clever strategy, instructing Leo to utilize his newly acquired weapon integrated CAD that can be detached and reattached. This is a smart move, given that the competition forbids direct physical attacks. As the event kicks off and the teams begin to engage in combat, Tatsuya's use of Gram Demolition, a highly potent counter-magic, takes everyone by surprise. Despite this, they manage to triumph over 4th High School, even as George scrutinizes Tatsuya's tactics. George concludes that while Tatsuya's combat skills are top tier, his magical abilities are somewhat lacking. with the exception of his Gram demolition spell. Convinced of this, George sees their victory as a foregone conclusion. First High School also manages to overcome Second High School. As Tatsuya observes Third High's clash against 8th High School, he surmises that they want a head-on confrontation. Following First High's victory over 9th High, they gear up to face the team of Masaki and George. Given the battleground terrain and Tatsuya's apparent lack of any other special spells besides Gram demolition, they assume that Tatsuya doesn't stand a chance of winning. Tatsuya hands Leo and Mickey each a robe. These aren't ordinary robes. They are specially designed with magical circles woven into the fabric, designed to facilitate the casting of magic spells. Tatsuya discloses that the one weakness in George's spell lies in his inability to launch an attack unless his opponent is within his line of sight. Although the battle setting doesn't particularly suit Tatsuya's mode of combat, he strategizes a plan that leverages Masaki's fixation on him to tilt the odds in favor of First High. While Tatsuya concedes that overcoming Masaki and George will be a tough feat, Miyuki asserts that defeat is not an option for him. Masaki and George notice the robes but shrug it off as a minor obstacle. They remain steadfast in their conviction of impending victory. Intrigued by Tatsuya, Kyudo, the head of the 10 magical families, decides to witness the face-off between First High and Third High. The battle commences, with Masaki and Tatsuya squaring off against each other. Meanwhile, George deduces that Tatsuya had revised his spells in a span of just 2 hours. George tries to join the fray, but Mickey impedes his advance. Masaki diverts his attention to aid George, providing Tatsuya with a critical window of opportunity to close in. Startled by Tatsuya's proximity, Masaki, in a panic, unleashes a lethal attack on Tatsuya, thereby violating the rules. Tatsuya employs his top-notch skills to dismantle the magic circles conjured by Masaki, but is unable to neutralize 2 circles. The resulting explosion is potent, inflicting Tatsuya with multiple injuries, fractured bones, and internal bleeding. Consequently, Tatsuya resorts to deploying his covert magic skill, Regrowth. This unique magic grants him the ability to revert his physical state back to how it was 24 hours prior. Suddenly rejuvenated, Tatsuya swiftly rises and flicks his fingers imbued with magic, flooring Masaki. A bewildered Mayumi is left questioning how Tatsuya managed to survive such a devastating attack. Jumonji reminds her of Tatsuya's proficiency in ancient martial arts and body-strengthening techniques. The Major observes that Tatsuya had also utilized the flash cast technique, a method that enables the user to recall the activation sequence from memory, thus negating any activation time for his magic. Even as Tatsuya grapples with the after effects of Masaki's assault, Mickey triumphs over George. Leo also manages to defeat the 3rd member from Third High, thereby securing a win for First High in the event. First High School is just one more victory away from winning the overall competition. But the No-Head Dragon group grows increasingly desperate. They make a dangerous decision to resort to violence, caring little about the potential casualties, as long as they can bring the competition to a halt. Tatsuya suspects the No-Head Dragon group will strike again and is determined to keep Miyuki safe. As the freshman Mirage Bat event kicks off, Mizuki employs her unique visual abilities to keep a watchful eye out for any unusual activities. During the event, First High's representative, Hirakawa, suddenly finds herself unable to use her CAD device and takes a hard fall. Mizuki spots an abnormal outburst of spirits from Hirakawa's CAD and promptly informs Tatsuya, who quickly comprehends the underlying issue. Tatsuya examines Miyuki's CAD to find traces of a virus. It becomes clear to him that one of the staff members has been tampering with the CAD devices. He attempts to question the suspicious employee, but his interrogation is interrupted by Kyudo. Tatsuya brings the situation to Kyudo's attention, who validates Tatsuya's suspicions and assures him that he will deal with the matter. During the Mirage Bat event, Tatsuya observes that despite Miyuki's impressive skills, she is struggling to secure a lead in the first round. In the break, Miyuki inquires if she could use the flying CAD. With a reassuring smile, Tatsuya gives her the go-ahead. As the final round commences, Miyuki stays still on the spot. Suddenly, she activates the CAD and begins to float mid-air, leaving both the participants and spectators baffled. However, they soon connect the dots and realize that she is using the flying magic that had been made public a few days earlier. The audience transitions from a state of disbelief to sheer excitement. With her extraordinary performance, Miyuki effortlessly clinches victory, achieving an almost perfect score. But this outcome displeases the No-Head Dragon group. When they realize their attempt to sabotage Miyuki's CAD was unsuccessful, they plot to harm the spectators to get the competition cancelled. Fortunately, their plan is foiled by the military, who had been secretly maintaining vigilance over the event. When the final round of the Mirage Bat event starts, all the competitors use the flying CAD. It seems that the school's complaints about Miyuki using the advanced flying magic led to the organization inadvertently leaking the magic sequence after inspecting it. The competitors believe they can outdo Miyuki with this information, but they are unaware that the flying magic sequence isn't optimized yet and uses up a large amount of magical energy. Ultimately, only Miyuki has sufficient magic reserves to cope with the high energy consumption, enabling her to win the event. The students are overjoyed and are already celebrating their win, even though there is one event still to go. However, Tetsuya is noticeably absent. He had asked Haruka to track down the location of the No-Head Dragon group, assuring her that he just wanted to ensure their safety. In the meantime, Kyudo meets with Major Kazama and requests that Tatsuya join his ranks, noting that he had been the trainer of Tatsuya's mother and aunt. Kyudo expresses his concern that the Yotsuba clan is becoming excessively powerful, to the extent that they could potentially exert control over the 10 master clans. He perceives Tatsuya and Masaki as equally powerful, viewing them as Japan's future military assets. However, Kazama refutes this, revealing that the Yotsuba clan surprisingly has no interest in Tatsuya. He also corrects Kyudo's assumption about Tatsuya and Masaki's comparable powers, clarifying that Tatsuya is significantly more powerful than Masaki. He likens Masaki to a tank, while Tatsuya, with his numerous safeguards to lock away his real power, is comparable to a nuclear weapon. Armed with the information he obtained, Tatsuya finds the No-Head Dragon group and eliminates them all, sparing only one. He interrogates the survivor and learns that a person named Sun is the leader of the No-Head Dragon. The following day, Tatsuya has a meeting with the Major, who reveals that the No-Head Dragon group supplies sorcery boosters. The Major elaborates that these boosters are illegal because they are made using a magician's brain. Simultaneously, Mayumi shares with Jumonji that the leaders of the 10 master clans have grown anxious after witnessing Tatsuya's match against Masaki. They urge Jumonji to unleash his full power in the final match. Jumonji emerges victorious in the final round, single-handedly securing the championship for first high as the competition draws to a close. During the closing ceremony, Jumonji proposes that Tatsuya should join the ranks of the 10 master clans by marrying Mayumi. He explains that the clans are troubled because Tatsuya, who they assumed was insignificant, was able to defeat Masaki, who is regarded as the next leader of the clans. After they get back to school, new members for the student council are elected and Miyuki lands the role of vice president. On the other hand, Tetsuya devotes his time to studying the Philosopher's Stone, intrigued by its ability to store magic sequences. He shares with Miyuki that his recent success in creating flying magic has inspired him to consider developing a nuclear fusion reactor to generate energy. When Miyuki then reveals that Ikahara wishes to speak with him, Tatsuya meets Ikahara, who asks him to participate in an upcoming high school thesis competition. This contest, taking place in Yokohama, provides students with an opportunity to present their innovative ideas. Finding that Ikahara's research topic aligns closely with his recent studies, Tatsuya decides to participate in the competition. Upon their return home, Tatsuya and Miyuki encounter an unanticipated guest, their stepmother Sayuri. Sayuri tries to persuade Tatsuya to quit school and work full-time as tourist silver for their company. However, Tatsuya turns her down, insisting on his duty to protect Miyuki. Sayuri then presents Tatsuya with a sample of a relic she acquired from the defense forces and requests him to analyze and replicate it. Tatsuya is puzzled why the defense forces would wish to duplicate this relic, especially considering the challenge it presents. Sayuri reveals that the relic has the capability to store magic sequences. Frustrated when Tatsuya refuses to return to the headquarters with her, Sayuri storms off and Tatsuya follows her. She is ambushed by men intent on stealing the relic, but Tatsuya intervenes and saves her. In the skirmish, he gets shot but uses his regrowth magic to heal himself and gain the advantage. After returning home, Tatsuya contacts the Major to inform him about the attack and to investigate who was behind it. While taking a short break, Miyuki brings him coffee and inquires about Sayuri's request. Tatsuya shows her the relic and explains its potential. He expresses his intention to attempt to replicate the relic despite the complexities involved. Mayumi shares with Tatsuya that the upcoming thesis competition holds the potential to shift the country's perspective, particularly in how magicians are viewed. Instead of being seen as mere tools of combat, magicians could be recognized for their intellectual contributions. Tatsuya also receives new information about a rising criminal organization in the city from Haruka. She mentions several unauthorized entries into the country in Yokohama and Yokosuka. Tatsuya finds the timing of these entries too convenient to be a coincidence, suspecting a connection to the thesis competition. Tatsuya and his friends soon realize they are under surveillance and decide to confront the person spying on them. Interestingly, Tatsuya allows the spy to get away. The Asian Alliance persists in observing Tatsuya and his group, but their attempts don't go unnoticed. Mikihiko speculates that these spies are foreign operatives, not locals. Meanwhile, the two officers investigating these occurrences liaise with military personnel to share their findings. In a separate incident, Erika and Leo manage to corner one of the spies and question him. The spy identifies himself as Gyro Marshall, an illegal immigrant. He explains that his mission is to ensure that magical technologies developed by Magic High students do not find their way to the East. He is there to stop any potential theft of these technologies, but Gyro manages to escape their grip, brandishing a gun at Erika in the process. However, Gyro doesn't stay free for long. Lu, an operative working for the Asian Alliance, eliminates Gyro while he's on the run. The Thesis Magic team completes the initial stage of their project, testing it to ensure it functions as intended. During this, Mibu notices a first-year student clutching a wireless password cracker. Upon being noticed, the girl attempts to flee, and Mibu gives chase. Along with Erika and Kirihara, Mibu manages to catch up with the girl. They find out she is indeed a spy, and learn her name is Chayaka. Mibu tries to reason with her, but Chayaka retaliates by deploying tear gas. However, Leo intervenes and subdues her. Meanwhile, Sekimoto, a member of the school's disciplinary committee, shows a rather suspicious interest in the thesis project. After capturing Chayaka, the disciplinary committee, represented by Chiyoda, interrogates her. It turns out Chayaka is the sister of the girl who was injured during the Mirage Bat event, and Chayaka became a spy out of resentment for Tatsuya, who she believes caused Hirakawa's injury. Recognizing the rising threat, Erika decides to train Leo in lethal techniques. She believes they will face more enemies like Gyro in the future and wants Leo to be prepared. On the other side, Zhao reports to Chen about Chayaka's capture while Erika and Leo continue their training. Jumanji, who has been appointed as the new general commander of the security forces, starts a stringent training regimen for his team. Understanding the need for expertise in combating magical threats, he seeks Mickey's help in training the forces. Tatsuya receives a cautionary message from his sensei, urging him to return the relic to its rightful place as soon as possible. Meanwhile, as Tatsuya and Miyuki are en route to their company, they are covertly followed by members of the Asian Alliance. When they reach FLT, they find the company's systems being infiltrated by the Alliance. Thankfully, they manage to stave off the cyber attack. Back at school, Tatsuya attempts to perform some debugging at the robotics club, but the room is suddenly filled with sleeping gas. Thankfully, a robot named Pixie intervenes and saves Tatsuya. Sekimoto, trying to steal confidential information from the school, is apprehended by Tatsuya and Chiyoda. Simultaneously, Mary encounters Naotsugu, Erika's older brother, in the building where Chayaka is held. Their conversation is interrupted by an alarm signifying a riot on the 4th floor, where Chayaka is located. Upon reaching, they find Gonghu, a former magic fighter now turned criminal, intent on killing Chayaki. Naotsugu confronts Gonghu, inflicting injury, but Gonghu manages to escape. Tatsuya reports the attempted robbery to his military teammate, who decides to launch an investigation. Tatsuya requests to visit Sekimoto in detention but is refused by the student council. However, Mary offers to accompany him as she and Mayumi also plan to visit Sekimoto. While all this is happening, a man named Zhao visits Chayaki and wipes her memory of the Alliance. The detention center where Sekimoto is held comes under another attack by Gonghu, whose target is still Sekimoto. Mary asks Tatsuya to protect Mayumi while she confronts Gonghu. Gonghu, however, deceives Mary and goes after Mayumi, but is thwarted by Tatsuya, who manages to wound him. Subsequently, Mary immobilizes Gonghu and he is taken into custody. Later, Tatsuya receives word from Fujibayashi of the military, informing him that all members of the Asian Alliance in the city have been apprehended, with the exception of their leader, Chen, who has managed to elude capture. Ju has a meeting with Chen in Yokohama, during which Chen implores him to secure the release of Lu Gonghu. Ju agrees to help but sets a condition that their operations must not compromise the safety of Chinatown. Meanwhile, Tetsuya and his friends are busily preparing for the thesis competition. Tetsuya reveals to them that the competition is habitually targeted for attacks every year, and therefore, he requests his friends to be on standby in case of an emergency. Fuji updates Tetsuya that the mobile suit, a piece of equipment crucial for their operations, is ready for use. Furthermore, he advises Tetsuya to anticipate a possible attack. At the competition, Tetsuya and Miyuki come across Masaki, who is serving in the security unit for the event. Elsewhere, Fuji issues a warning to Haruka, cautioning her against digging too deep into Tetsuya's affairs. Fuji later discovers that Gonghu has successfully been sprung from his detention. News reaches Jumanji that Sekimoto had been manipulated and controlled mentally. In response to this revelation, Jumanji instructs all security forces to equip themselves with bulletproof jackets and to maintain a high level of alertness. When its first high's turn to present, their presentation is well received and successful. George, a member of the opposing team, acknowledges Tetsuya's significant contribution to the thesis project while also playfully declaring that they won't concede defeat easily. However, just before Third High can make their presentation, the thesis convention is abruptly attacked. A vehicle loaded with explosives rams into the control building of the convention, causing chaos and destruction. The students are further attacked by an underground ship belonging to the enemy that continues to launch rockets at them. Despite the hostile onslaught, Tetsuya manages to dismember one of the terrorists, which emboldens the students to take out the rest of the attackers. George, one of the students, confronts Tetsuya about his use of the molecular divider attack, a classified technique known to a very select few. George is baffled by Tetsuya's ability to wield this technique, but Tetsuya chooses to not engage in the discussion. Azusa uses her magic to soothe the panic-stricken crowd, while Mayumi directs everyone towards a safe evacuation. Following this, Tetsuya and his friends successfully neutralize the terrorists and make their way to the VIP conference room, led by their friend Shizuku. Their next course of action is to head to the demonstration room to erase all data related to their presentation. Here, they find Mayumi and Jumanji already working on wiping the data. Tetsuya predicts that the students who manage to escape via the underground passage will likely face more attacks. Responding to this, Jumanji dispatches Hattori and Sawaki to protect the fleeing students. Tetsuya manages to thwart another explosive-laden vehicle, and shortly after, the military defense forces make their arrival. All information restrictions on Tetsuya are lifted, and the group learns about his high-ranking position as a special lieutenant in the military. The major assigns Tetsuya to a mission, requesting the group to maintain confidentiality regarding Tetsuya's role in the military. The group continues with their evacuation procedure. In an emotionally charged moment, Miyuki kisses Tetsuya on his forehead, an action that removes the seal suppressing his powers. As Masaki attempts to lead his friends to safety, he unleashes a brutal attack on the terrorists blocking their way, leaving a trail of destruction. Meanwhile, Jumanji seeks Fuji's approval to proceed to the Magic Association Kento branch. Being the temporary head of the Jumanji family, he feels it's his duty to protect it. In an effort to rescue the students, Shizuku and Mayumi reach out to their fathers to arrange helicopters for evacuation. Tetsuya suits up in his modified flight gear and enters the fray, taking down the enemy's drones one by one. He is given orders to rally with Yanaga's forces on the ground. Masaki, however, does not join the evacuation effort and instead makes his way to the Magic Association Kento branch, ready to fight. While the group awaits the rescue helicopters, they face an onslaught of weaponized machines. On meeting up with Yanagi, Tetsuya learns that their adversaries belong to the Great Asian Alliance. Shortly after, the rescue helicopters arrive and the students are ferried to a safe location. Despite the students' escape, the terrorists continue their destructive rampage. However, Masaki and Jumanji counter their attacks, forcing them to withdraw. In the midst of this chaos, Kirihara and the rest of the group find themselves in a dangerous ambush, resulting in Kirihara's leg being brutally injured and Kei being shot. Just when all seems lost, Miyuki swoops in and neutralizes the attackers. She immediately gets in touch with Tetsuya, who uses his regrowth ability to heal Kirihara and Kei. Praising Miyuki for her bravery, Tetsuya flies away to continue the fight. As the fierce battle continues, Tetsuya and his forces gain the upper hand and triumph over the enemy. The opposing soldiers, awestruck by his immense power, label Tetsuya as the god of destruction. Jumanji and members from the Magic Association press their advantage, compelling the enemy troops to withdraw. Meanwhile, in Chinatown, Masaki encounters Zhao, who turns over the terrorists who had managed to escape earlier. Aboard the rescue helicopter, Kirihara and the others are in disbelief over their sudden recovery. When they question Miyuki about how Tatsuya healed them, she explains his unique ability. Tatsuya uses regrowth, a technique that allows him to restore any person to their pre-injury state if the wound was sustained within the last 24 hours. However, this power is a double-edged sword. It's why Tatsuya struggles with other forms of magic, and each time he uses regrowth, he experiences an intensified version of the victim's pain, 150 times over. He's the only mage in the world who can wield this ability. In a separate skirmish, Lu Gonghu launches an attack on the Magic Association, but a combined effort quickly defeats him. Miyuki goes up against Chen and dispatches him effortlessly. As the terrorists start to retreat, Tatsuya takes decisive action. He uses material bursts to obliterate their ship and wipe out the remaining enemy forces. With this final blow, Tatsuya brings an end to the war by demolishing the enemy fleet. The incident later comes to be known as Scorched Halloween, serving as a stark reminder of the raw power of magic. Finally, Tatsuya and Miyuki are reunited. After the dust settles, Yotsuba Maya, the siblings' guardian, expresses her desire for them to return home. Watch this next video. See you on the next one.